Short Story Notes Part 2. Now, Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway is not as hard as it seems at first, as long as you can understand a few things about what is going on in the story, and that usually amounts to what is not really said in the story. You have to read between the lines with Hemingway. First off, let's consider the title, Hills Like White Elephants. Well, we can imagine white elephants, and we can imagine hills looking like white elephants. But the phrase white elephants is something that seems to have passed out of our cultural consciousness. A white elephant is something that nobody wants. It's something that you might bring to a garage sale, or you might bring to a church auction because it's been lying around the house and you don't really want it anymore. Nobody in the house wants it. And this is what we're talking about here. There's something in the relationship that nobody wants between the man and the young woman. And that happens to be the baby that the woman is pregnant with. Now, that you have to understand as somehow implied in the dialogue that goes on in the story. Once you get to that point, then you can realize that there is a great deal of tension. And because there's a great deal of tension, you might also realize that as the couple are talking to each other, they're lying. They're lying to each other with almost everything they say. All right, so we have to stop there and consider this. There is another element in a short story that I didn't mention in the last lecture, and that is the element of repetition. Hemingway's pretty good with it. He makes it part of his style, his writing style. But you'll find this sort of thing in every short story that you read. Things that are repeated, phrases that are repeated, allusions that are repeated, what we call motifs that are repeated, forms of action that might occur, or ideas that might be alluded to as the story goes on. So when you're reading, I want you to notice that there's a lot of repetition here, and it has its point because it stresses the difficulty in the relationship, and also has a bit of humor to it as well. Now, as you're going on with the other two stories, which is Sweat by Zora Neale Hurston and The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe, you'll see that there are two different kinds of stories here, and they're a little more obvious in the ending. You might want to consider who's the main character in Hemingway's story. It'll be pretty obvious who's the main character in the next two stories, and the endings are going to bring about surprises. The surprises will occur not only to one character, but to other characters as well. And that's something that, again, is very, very much involved with the aesthetic that we call the short story, that form that we call the short story. So pay attention to this as well. Now, I'm going to repeat what I said last time. Notice where this is taking place. Notice when it's taking place. The Hemingway story takes place in the 1920s. And the idea of an abortion then was considered to be pretty bad, and it could be pretty dangerous as well. Anyone having an abortion really was risking her life. So that's something that's important here as well. But in that story, the relationship is also under a great deal of risk. So is the relationship between the heroine of Sweat and her husband, and so is the relationship between the married couple in The Black Cat. So you'll notice now, notice the repetitions, make note of them as well. I'm going to send you an email about what I would like you to do in response to your reading of these three stories, and that's going to be due as I'll tell you in the email. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.